Assalamualaikum. Today we would like to present our ECO162 group project. For this project, we have chosen the United States of America as our country of analysis. My name is Muhammad Faiz and I will begin to the presentation with the introduction. The United States of America, USA, is reputed to be among the economic and technological superpower in the world. US economy is founded on capitalist or free market economic system, which is run on the base of private ownership, innovation, and force of demand and supply. The economic growth of this country is colossal considering that it has a highly developed market and over 340 million people whose consumer preference and the level of competition in its market. The smartphone market is a highly dynamic and important market in the US in the technology sector. US possesses the technology giant of the world such as Apple that has high market presence both locally and internationally. Smartphones are no longer luxury but are now almost necessity to Americans, and it has evolved into a highly profitable business with a high production of innovation, brand loyal, and high technology advancement. This research intends to analyze the application on the concept of microeconomy in the United States, and especially the smartphone industry in the US. This assignment will be an evaluate of how market force, consumer behavior, and technology trend interact in a capitalist system. The proposed research area include the demand and supply equilibrium analysis, price elasticity, and the market structure that rule the US market that is prevalently an oligopoly.
So, type of economy for the United States has a mixed economy system. It is fundamentally based on free market capitalism, but it also includes significant element of government intervention to protect the public interest, regulation industry, and maintain economic stability. Government intervened at the federal, state, local level to improve law, correct market value, provide public service such as infrastructure. So for the system influence resources allocation and economic decision making, the mixed nature of the United States economic system fundamentally determine how resources such as land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship are allocated, as well as how financial decisions are made. So number one, price mechanism. In the United States, fundamental question regarding what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom it to produce are largely determined by price. Price actually are signals when consumer demand for a product rise. It price also increase the significant private business to allocate more resources toward producing the goods in order to maximize profit. Number two, consumer sovereignty. Consumer ultimately determine the direction of economic decision through their spending choice. Consequently, business are risk financial furniture if they are produced goods that consumer do not want. This mechanism ensure that resources are naturally channeled through product and service that provide significant benefit to society. Number three, regulation for market furniture. The government intervenes when the free market fail to allocate resources efficiently or equitably. For instance, the government enforce anti-monopoly law to prevent monopolies from raising price and enact environmental regulation to limit pollution resulting from private sector production. So number four, public goods and infrastructure. Private companies often lack the profit incentive to build essential yet unprofitable resources. Therefore, the government use tax revenue to allocate resources for public, such as public education, federal highway, national defense, and public health system.
The smartphone market in the United States stands as one of the strongest and most active sectors in the world. In 2023, its market earned close to $97 billion in revenue. Over 270 million people in the country own a mobile device, and demand stays high across every season, not tied to one holiday or launch window. Phones no longer sit in the luxury category for Americans. People use the device for work calls, video meetings, banking, shopping, and staying in touch with family. The shift in daily use changed by behavior over the past decade, and now this sector shows up often in economic study and news coverage. A device that once served one function, making calls, now handles dozens of daily tasks for a single user. By the end, you will see why phones sit at the center of those daily life and economic policy in the United States. So, let's move into demand. Now, let's break down what drives demand for smartphones in the US. So for the first factor is income levels. Demand for phones ties directly to household income across the country. American buying power resides, and this lets buyers afford premium phones priced at $799 and up. A household with higher income upgrades device more often and buys higher-end models. This gives us a direct link between income and demand, because the more money a household earns, the more they spend on their next phone. For the second factor is the price of substitutes. Tablets, laptops, and smartwatches offer similar features to a smartphone, which is browsing, messaging, video calls, and entertainment. When phone prices rise, some buyers shift toward these substitutes instead. Still, a phone fits in the pocket and travels everywhere a person goes, so full substitution stays rare. And this keeps demand for phones high even during price hikes, since no other device makes the convenience of one item that handles calls, app, and payments in a single pocket-sized package. Third and last factor is customer preference and brand loyalty. American buyers show strong loyalty to their chosen brand, such as Apple that stands out here. A counterpoint research from report from 2023 found Apple holds a customer retention rate near 92%. Buyers stay local for a few reasons: familiar software, tight product integration across device, and social influence from friends and family who own the same brand. This loyalty keeps demand steady even when prices climb, since switching costs feel high to a buyer who already owns an iPad, a MacBook, and an Apple Watch. Now, let's look at supply, the forces that shape how many phones reach the US market and at what cost. For the first factor is the cost of production and raw materials. Smartphone manufacturing needs rare materials such as lithium, cobalt, and semiconductors, and prices for these materials shift across the globe. When prices for these materials rise, manufacturers cut back production to protect their profit margins. During the 2021 to 2022 chip shortage, both Apple and Samsung pulled back supply and shifted focus toward their higher margin models only, leaving budget phones harder to find on the shelf. So for the second factor is trade policy and supply chain disruption. Most iPhone parts get built in China, so US trade policy hits Apple hard. Tariff from the US-China trade war raised the cost of components and slowed production schedules. Then in 2022, COVID lockdown across Chinese factories cut output further, and this trimmed the iPhone supply, reaching US stores for months as stretch. For the third and last factor is technology and production efficiency. Manufacturers now lean on automation and robotics to build phones faster and with fewer defects. Automated assembly, cut labor cost per unit, and let factories run closer to full capacity even during a shortage of skilled workers. Better manufacturing tech also shorten the time between a phone design phase and its arrival on store shelves. Companies that invest in this equipment tend to keep supply steady even when raw materials price spikes, since efficient production offsets some of the added costs.
For elasticities of demand and supply, ED equals to percentage change in quantity demanded of phones QD per percentage change in price of phones P equals to QD2 minus QD1 per QD1 divided P2 minus P1 per P1 equals to 2000 minus 2500 per 2500 divided 1000 minus 500 per 500 equals to 0.2. This state inelastic demand because the elasticity is more than 0 but less than 1. For supply, ES equals to percentage change in quantity supply of phones QS per percentage change in price of phones P equals to QS2 minus QS1 per QS1 divided P2 minus P1 per P1 equals to 2500 minus 2000 per 2000 divided 1000 minus 500 per 500 equals to 0.25. This states inelastic supply because the elasticity is more than 0 but less than 1. For factors influencing elasticity of demand. First, consumer's habit. Ever wonder why some people will drop $1,000 on a new phone without blinking, while others switch brands the second price go up? It all comes down to elasticity of demand, and two major factors drive it. And if you have a strong brand habit, you are locked into an ecosystem. Even if the price spikes, switching is just too much of a headache, making your demand inelastic. But if you just need a phone for the basics, you will drop them for a cheaper alternative instantly. The second major factor is level of income. For high-income earners, a price hike barely registers. The cost of a premium phone is just a tiny fraction of their overall budget, so they buy it anyway. But for low-income consumers, even a minor price increase is a major financial burden. They are highly sensitive to price changes and will immediately hunt for sales or cheaper alternatives. For factors influencing elasticity of supply, the first major factor is time frames. When smartphone prices suddenly skyrocket, why can't the factories just instantly pump out millions of extra devices that same day? It all comes down to the elasticity of supply. In the short term, smartphone supply is highly inelastic. Manufacturers can't just adjust logistics or order extra microchips overnight. But in the long term, supply becomes highly elastic because companies finally have the time to build new factories and set up massive assembly lines. The second game changer is the level of technology. Massive improvement in manufacturing processes mean companies can produce units at scale for a fraction of the cost. Take Apple, for example. By shifting to their own custom A series and M series chips, they stopped relying so heavily on third-party suppliers. This gave them total control over their production, helping them ramp up supply way faster when needed. So, we can see the statistic of real-world data of the smartphone.
Next is theory of distribution in wages. In a competitive job market, test factory don't set wages, they are wage takers. Because there are so many employees and job seekers, baseline pay is decided purely by the balance of labor, supply and demand. We see this on entry-level assembly lines in tech hubs like Silicon Valley or Austin. Because the skills needed to assemble smartphone screens are highly standardized, workers are easily replaced and can quickly leave for better opportunities. Factory must pay the exact market rate. If they pay too little, workers quit. But if they pay too much, profits vanish. However, massive wage gaps exist for specialized roles. A hardware engineer or an AI specialist creates far more financial value for a company than a manual packaging worker. Because top-tier talents in fields like machine learning is hard to find, this high corporate demand pushes tech engineering wages sky high. Next one is consumer behavior. Every time someone buys a new smartphone, they look at three big things, which is the price, how good it is, and the brand name. In America, everyone wants the best deal. When money is tight or things get expensive, people get smart. Instead of buying the newest, most expensive phone, they might choose a cheaper model, pay a little bit each month, or buy an older refurbished phone. This keeps their brands happy. Buyer also thinks hard when choosing between Apple and Android. They want a phone that connects easily with the other tech they already have at home, like tablet or computers. In the end, they just want the best phone for their budget and their daily life.
For the theory of distribution wage determination, number one, in perfect competition within the labor market, individuals, firms are wage takers. This means that there are lack of actual power to determine wage rates as there are numerous employers and numerous job seekers. As the result, the minimum market wage rates depend purely on the balance between the sum total of both the amount of labor supply and the amount of labor demand. Number two, the highly competitive nature of the labor market is evident in the sector of Number two, the highly competitive nature of the labor market is evident in the sector for entry-level assembly workers within the technology manufacturing hubs in California, such as Silicon Valley and Austin, as well as in the technology corridors of Oregon and Ohio. Furthermore, highly workforce mobility allows operation to move to other manufacturing facilities in pursuit of better opportunity. This situation presents factories with a dilemma, like offering lowest wages in line with current market rates, risk losing workers to domestic competition, whereas offering high wages will reduce profit margin. Number three, overall, there is significant wage gap driven by various economic factors. This disparity leverage system from substantially different in specialized human capital and labor productivity. For instance, hardware engineers generate a far higher marginal output value compared to manual packaging workers. Furthermore, the rapid adoption of cutting-edge mobile AI solution has surged market demand for specialized skills such as machine learning.
In conclusion, the US is a mixed economy where majority of the economic decisions are driven by the ideals of free market economy. This has been exemplified in the smartphone industry where the supply of smartphone prices and innovation have been overtaken by the private players that include Apple, Samsung, and Google without government interference to a large extent. The distribution of resources in the market is based on what demands of consumers and competitive prices as opposed to the central planning. Macroeconomic principles are in play in the smartphone of market in the US. The demand factors are income levels, brand loyalty, availability of substitutes, whereas the supply factors are the cost of production, trade policy, and technology. The market equilibrium in 2023 will reach at 730 units per price. But market shows in the recent times, due to chip shortage and inflation, drove the curve up and down, shifting the price up and the quantity down. The analysis of elasticity demonstrates that the demand of smartphones are relatively elastic because the customers respond to any price changes by delaying the upgrade or switching to other brands. The US tech industry pays wages based on the theory of competitive labor market, which is determined by the skills, productivity, and demand of labor. The demand in software engineers and tech workers make the salaries very high above the national average, and the less skilled jobs in the manufacturing and retail are under which pressure with automation and outsourcing. The combination of the macroeconomic force determines the distribution of resources, pricing, and rewarding labor throughout the whole industry in the technology market in America.